Macbeth is a tragedy by William Shakespeare. It is thought to have been first performed in 1606. It dramatizes the physical and psychological effects of political ambition on those who seek power. Of all the plays that Shakespeare wrote during the reign of James I, Macbeth most clearly reflects his relationship with King James, patron of Shakespeare Acting Company. Short summary of the tragedy. After a battle in Scotland, Macbeth and his friend Banquo meet three witches who make three prophecies. Macbeth will be a Thane, Macbeth will be king, and Banquo's sons will be kings. The witch's first prophecy comes true, and King Duncan makes Macbeth Thane of Cawdor. When King Duncan visits Macbeth Castle, Lady Macbeth persuades Macbeth to murder King Duncan in his sleep to make the second prophecy come true. With Lady Macbeth's help, Macbeth frames King Duncan's dead servant as the murderers. Duncan's children, Malcolm and Donalbain, leave Scotland for their own safety. Now King Macbeth worries about the witch's third prophecy and sends murderers to kill Banquo and his son. At a banquet, Macbeth is haunted by visions of Banquo's ghost in front of all his guests. Macbeth visits the witches, and they tell him the only person he needs to beware of is Macduff. No one a woman has given birth to can harm him, and he won't be defeated until Birnam Wood moves. He thinks he's unbeatable. While Macduff is in England convincing Duncan's son Malcolm to fight against Macbeth, Macbeth and Macduff's family murdered. Macduff and Malcolm arrive in Scotland with an army. On their way to attack Macbeth's castle, they cut down branches from the trees in Birnam Wood to use it as camouflage. When the wood moves, one of the witch's prophecies come true. Macduff reveals that he was born by cesarean birth and kills Macbeth, fulfilling the final prophecy. Characters of the tragedy. Macbeth. Macbeth, Thane of Glamis, is a brave Scottish general in King Duncan's army. However, upon hearing the three witches' prophecy that he would become King of Scotland, he becomes tyrannical. With his wife's help, he kills King Duncan, but he fills him with deep regret and guilt. Plagued by insecurities, he suffers from insanity and insomnia. He mourns his wife's death and contemplates killing himself too as Malcolm's army approaches him. However, Macduff challenges him and he decides to die fighting. Lady Macbeth. Even more ambitious and ruthless than her husband, Lady Macbeth plots to murder King Duncan upon hearing of the witch's prophecies. She goads Macbeth into the evil deed despite his hesitance. She comforts her husband in his guilt afterwards. However, her guilt soon turns her mad, as well-hand, tormented by nightmares, she sleepwalks and she tries to wash out the invisible bloodstains on her hands. She dies off stage in the final act, a supposed suicide. Macduff. Macduff is loyal to King Duncan. He is the first to discover Duncan's dead body and never believes it was the servants who killed him. Macduff flees to England, trying to find King Duncan's son, Malcolm, and he restores him as rightful king, but meanwhile, Macduff's wife and children are murdered. Full of grief and revenge, he persuades Malcolm to lead an army against Macbeth, challenges Macbeth 1-1, and he slays him. Malcolm is one of King Duncan's sons and proclaimed heir to his throne. Suspected of his own father's murder, he flees to England. He mobilizes an army in England and leads them to Scotland with Macduff's help. He and his forces march on Dunsinane Castle, where Macbeth has retreated, camouflaging themselves with branches from Birnam Wood, and thereby fulfilling the witch's prophecy. He takes over as king and restores order. Banquo is a Scottish general known for his bravery like his friend Macbeth. They meet the witches together upon returning from battle, and Banquo is also eager to know what the prophecy is for him. They tell him that he will not be king, but that his descendants will inherit the throne. When Macbeth takes the throne, Banquo pledges royalty to him, despite his suspicions, but Macbeth has him murdered, seeking to secure his position as king. Banquo's ghost appears and haunts Macbeth at the banquet that night. Conclusion: Macbeth and his wife see how their ambitions made them cross many moral lines that lead them to their downfall. At the end of this tragedy, Macbeth had achieved everything that he wanted, but was left without anything. With Lady Macbeth's death, he had no hopes of producing a prince, so he finally understands that his ambition made him lose all that he holds dear.